Hey y'all, Gramma Rose here. Have you finished knitting the leg of your sock? Well, let me show you mine. I'll turn it around this way so you can see it on the screen. So there it is. I have the yellow. I've got my, gold. It's a gold, yeah. Gold ribbing at the top. I changed colors, and I did the leg of my sock in the green and purple. Remember, these are going to be Mardi Gras socks. So I've got the leg of my sock, including the cuff, as long as I want it to be. Like I said the last time, I'm not telling you how long to do yours. You can make them little shorties. Little short 2-inch things that are like you would wear in the summertime. Or you can make them long, even longer than this is. This one is, let me see, if I can find my measuring tape. I know I had it out here somewhere, and I don't know where I put it, darn it. Well, you know, if I can't find my measuring tape, I have a ruler. So here we go, little ruler. So I knit turn this around this way. This is upside down, but you can read it still. So the cuff is 1.5 inches long. See that? And my total length is about 1/2 inch longer than that. So I believe, let me see, how long did I do that part? So I did my leg part 5 inches, which means the total length of it is 6.5 inches. You could do yours longer. I've done them longer. But anyway, this is where I'm stopping for right now. Now, what I'm going to do now, it's time to do the heel, or the heel flap. We'll do the heel in a bit, but right now we're doing the heel flap. Now for the heel flap, I'm changing back to the gold. Uh-oh, we have a visitor. I'm going to change back to the gold for the heel flap, as I wanted these to have gold cuff, gold heels, and gold toes. Now, I have in my instructions on Ravelry, I tell you, some people are really, really particular about how their socks line up. And I want to show you what to do if you decide that you want these stripes to line up perfectly in the front. In other words, if you want it to come around and have this broken rib be right in the middle, then what you're going to need to do is to make these stitches not at the end, but on the sides. So how would you do that? Basically, you would just knit one less stitch here, one less stitch on this side, and we would put one more stitch on this side, so the even side, they have exactly the same number of stitches. You're just switching the stitches around. Now, if you want to do the other way and have one of these panels in the middle, then what you need to do on that side, this needs to be the side of the foot. That would be the side of the foot. And in that case, what you would need to do is when you finish this side, this one needle, would be to knit 3 more stitches on this side. And then put them over onto the other needle. And then when you knit across on this side, we'll continue 3 more stitches over here to get them where they're actually turned around just a little bit. And that way you'll have these stripes lined up. You know, I'm not going to do that. I just wanted to show you what to do, and it's easy fix if that's what you want. Now let me get these stitches back over here. Move that back in. Move that off. I need to get to those stitches again. You can take these 3 stitches, and we're going to unknit them. Where's the yarn? There's the yarn right there. So those 3 stitches that I just put on this needle, I'm going to take out. Show you what. Have I shown you how to do this before? I don't know. When you take out the stitch, when you need to pick back, it's called pick back. You come in the middle of the stitch like that, from the top side, and come from the middle of the stitch, and then just take that off. And again, into the middle of the stitch, take it off, in the middle of the stitch, and take it off. Whoops, didn't do that right. I went through the loop instead of the stitch. Here we go, the middle of the stitch, and take it off. Now we're going to put this back over here on this needle. And we're back to where we started. Now, what I'm going to do here, I'm actually going to do one more row with this pattern, because the pattern says, let me show you. I have the pattern, the Vanilla Latte Sock pattern, on my tablet. Let me move this out of the way and show you what it says. Here we go. Let me enlarge this so you can see it. Let's see. Maybe if I turn it this way, it would be better. Okay, there's the heel flap. This app, by the way, is called Knit Companion. I'll show you. I will show you that in another video. I've had this for several years, since I believe the first year it came out. And I use this. I don't use this to read PDFs, but you can link this, say, in your Dropbox, and that's basically, if I get a pattern on my computer, if I've downloaded it onto my computer, then I can save it into my Dropbox and then collect it from my Dropbox into Knit Companion. Or I can just download it directly into Knit Companion if I'm using my tablet on the internet. One way or the other. Either that or my phone. I also have it on my phone. Like I said, I was kind of grandfathered in. At the beginning, when I think the lady decided she wanted to make more money, like people do, of course, she designed this program, and it is an amazing app. Really, really fabulous app. I'm not going to go into any details of it now, but at the beginning, you paid for it once, and then it was yours forever. And now she's come out with a new and improved version, air quotes, improved version, that now has like a yearly fee. Yeah, you're renting it instead of owning it. I'm not going to change over to that. There may be improvements, but I know how to work this one the way it is, and I don't feel like I need any of the improvements that she's made. If I discovered them, I might change my mind, but I'm happy with this the way it is. So anyway, here we go. Here is the heel flap, directions on the heel flap. I'll show you down here. There's the picture of the socks, and we're doing this part right here. This part right here, let me show you with my needle, is the heel flap. That it's going to be a rectangle, and we're only going to work on one of the needles. The next stage after that is called turning the heel, and that's this part over here. Now, I'm not going to show you turning the heel today, because I haven't done it yet on mine. And I would have to knit this whole thing, which isn't going to take long. It's half of, an inch and a half maybe long? I don't know. I guess I could measure on the socks that I have on my feet, but I don't want to do that. Essentially what you do here is the length of your heel. If you're sitting down, or standing up rather, so if you're standing up and you put a ruler on the bottom, the flat on the floor, standing up, and then you measure where the bend of your heel is on your foot, which would be right here, or it should be right here. And that length is how long you would do, how long you would knit. Average is about 32 rows. And each of the rows is a 2-row pattern, like on the leg of the sock. There's a 2-row pattern. And you start, and the way the pattern is written, let me show you this. We're going to do the slip stitch rib. That's not the easiest one. The easiest one up here is your stockinette, and that's continue knit and purl. The slip stitch rib is a little bit more complicated, but really not. Really not. So for this rib, what you do is you always start every round, or at the end of the row, at the beginning of the row, you slip a stitch, and then you knit one. And you continue across. So slip one, knit one, slip one, knit one, slip one, knit one, all the way across. I'll show you in a second how to slip. Easy. If you've been knitting for a while, you've probably slipped stitches before. This is nothing new, but somebody may not have done this before, and I'm trying to explain it for the people who've never done it before. If you've already done it before, you continue on and just skip over this part. So anyway, this is what the rib is, and it's super simple. And what it looks like down here is that. See, it looks like ribbing, but it's not really the same as ribbing. What it does, it makes the back of your sock cushier. It makes it a little bit springier, a little bit thicker, and that prevents the wear and tear on the back of your sock, or at least helps it anyway. There's still going to be some wear down here. Let me point this out. On this part of the sock, that's going to be underneath your foot right there. And there will be, a lot of people wear holes in this part right there. But this part right here, because of the slip stitches, is durable. So let's go back and show you what to do. So, we're not doing the heel turn yet. That's going to be the next step. So here's the slip stitch rib. Slip one, knit one, and repeat across. The next row, slip one, purl across. Well, I'm not doing that. I have to be different. Let me show you. Move that out of the way. There's the purl stitches right here. So I'm ready for just a straight knit row, right? So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to knit across until I get to the end of this needle. And then I'm going to turn around. And I'll show you what I'm going to do. So let me do this. But you know what? I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to slip one first. I'm going to continue. This is going to be part of the heel. So let me find what I did with that gold yarn. So just like we changed the yarn, changed to the green and purple yarn earlier, I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm just going to pick up this yarn, move the stitch up, start knitting, but instead of knitting with this color, I'm going to knit with, you know what I'm going to do right now? I'm going to go ahead and break this right now. I'll go ahead and break this yarn. This is harder to break. Darn. Tough stuff. I think I have a dent in my fingers. I do. Look at that. That was hard yarn. Move this to the inside. Oh, and this thing right here, before I show you anything else, this is called, well, this is actually a removable one of these things. It's a stitch marker. And what this does is it marks a place in your knitting. This has a, what are they called? This kind of latch, I forget what they're called. You know what I'm talking about. Okay. What I did there is every time I stopped, I would put this in place, put this on the stitch, and then that way I can tell how far I've knit. And so I knew I had to knit another inch, so I put this in the place, and I knit and continued to knit until I had knit another inch. And that way I didn't have to knit the full length of the sock every time. So that's what this is, and you can use these on crochet too. What do you call these clasps like that? My mind has gone blank. But you know, you've seen these on everything. Necklaces, all kind of stuff. You use these clasps. Industrial uses too. Anyway, that's what I use. And you can just come in here and just clip it on your knitting. Well, it's easy for me to do backwards like that. And just clip it on the knitting. It's also really good if you drop a stitch and you want to mark where that stitch is that you've dropped. And now I can't get this back off. It's caught. There we go. It was caught on this back loop right here. So I have not lost any stitches here while I was doing that. That's pretty good. So we're going to start here. And let me show you why I chose this side to be the back side. Because this is actually, I came around and this would be the front. But I made a mistake. Do you see this right here? Do you see this rib right here? There's that broken rib right there. I forgot to do it on this row right there. I didn't do it. On that round, I forgot to do it. Only on this side. The other side is fine. So I'm putting this on the back of my leg right there at my heel, and nobody is going to see that. Like I said, this is going to be the first half, the first row on the sock. I'm going to slip one, and I'm just going to knit across. You see what I just did? Let me do that again. I just put my needle in from the left side, and I just moved the stitch over to that needle. That's all there is to it. Then I'm going to knit across. Now this, whoops, split that stitch. Splitting the stitch, in case you didn't know, is where you come through with your needle and it actually goes through the yarn and you end up, it makes a weak spot. You don't want to do that if you can avoid it. And just continue knitting across. Like I said, a split stitch, if you only have half of the yarn at that point. And that makes it a weak spot, a spot that you could get a hole in it. And just continue, and I'm going to knit all the way across. I'll speed up here. Okay, 2 more stitches. Now, okay, before, when we were knitting the leg of the sock, we continued around. But to do the heel flap, we're going to turn it over. And in this case, we're going to purl. Now, we did not do the slip stitches on the knit side. And I wrote the pattern and said to do that, but it's not necessary. You can do it on either side you want to do it, either the knit side or the purl side. But the slip ribs, what do they call it? Slip stitch rib. It's really, really simple. So let's do this again. And this is why I like to do this on the back side. I'm going to slip the first stitch, like we did before, and then purl. See, it's easier because you're just putting the stitch in, the needle in from the same side. So slip stitch and purl. Slip stitch and purl. You see what I mean? Slip stitch and purl. Slip and purl. Slip and purl. Slip and purl. Slip and purl. And across. Now, we're back to the knit. So on this one, I'm so in the habit, there's no reason for me to hold this loop here. In fact, if you want to, you can knit this on straight needles if you have any straight needles the same size. For this one, it's just slip one. The first stitch is always slipped. And then knit across. Let me do that over again. It's back into the middle up here. So on this next row, this is just a 2-row repeat. So we're back to the first row again. Slip one and knit, and then we're going to knit across. Just continue to knit. We'll speed up here. Okay, we're at the end of this row. Let me do one more, and you should have it. So that's really all there is to it. You're just repeating these 2 rows. Now, the pattern says to repeat the 2 rows 16 times for a total of 32 rows. Now, like I said a few minutes ago, if you have a little short heel, 16 rows may be too long for you and it's going to bag. You want it to be smooth. You may not want to do 16. You may only want to do 14. I can't tell you. It's your foot. That's what's so wonderful about a hand knit socks, is you make them to fit yourself. So if you have a long heel, everybody's foot's shaped differently. Some people have little short heels and other people have long heels. If you have a long heel, you may want to do 18 repeats of the 2 rows. You may want to do 19 repeats of the 2 rows to make it the right length for your heel. Now that's going to make a difference when at a couple of steps forward, but not much. All it's going to do is change the number of stitches you'll pick up on the side. And you're going to be picking up anyway you pick up until they're gone. That's all there is to it. So here we go. So we've done one knit row. We've got 1 row that is the slip stitch, the purl, slip stitch and purl, slip stitch and purl, all the way across. We've got the cut end, straight end of my yarn where I attached it. Let's move my yarn back over here. Get it all out of the way. We're going to do 1 more row and you've got this. Just continue this until this is as long as it needs to be. It's kind of like the top of the sock. I said, you knit it as long as you want it to be. And in this case, you knit it until it fits you. If you have a short heel, then don't do 16 rounds. If you have a long heel, do more than 16. Or not rounds, but repeats. So here we go. Again, the yarn is in the front because we're going to purl. Slip 1 and purl. Do you see why I like to do this better on the purl side than the knit side? Let's go in. And purl. And across, we just continue. Slip 1 and purl. Did I do that right? Let me back up. I think I might have purled twice. Let me back up a little bit here. Because if you purl twice, yeah, I did. I purled twice. So there's slip 1 and purl. Let me show you how you can tell if you've done that right. Right down here, let me see if I've got something I can point with. Another needle. Okay, do you see this loop right here? Right along here is your slip stitch. Now your slip stitches should line up on top of each other like rungs on a ladder. And if you see that it's not, then that means that you have done 2 of one thing. Whatever it is, whether you slip 2 in a row or whether you purl 2 in a row. They're not going to line up, they'll alternate. And that's a different pattern altogether, which is, it's actually written into the pattern. It's called the Eye of Partridge. And the Eye of Partridge is basically the same thing, but every other row you alternate whether you slip and purl, you know what I mean. So you would start off with, say, slip 1, purl 2, then slip 1, purl 1, slip 1, purl 1, all the way across. And then the next time you do it, you would slip 1, purl 1, slip 1, purl 1. So alternate times you would purl 2 at the beginning, and that would make those slip stitches offset. And it turns out to be a really pretty pattern. It's particularly pretty on a solid pattern, more so than, I like it better on a solid pattern than on a variegated pattern. I think it shows up better on a solid pattern. But, that's my personal preference. Everybody's different. Everybody has their own opinions, right? Okay, so we purled one. Now we're going to slip one. See that slipping right above that loop right there. Now purl one. Slip one, purl one. Okay. Turn it over. You can see those slips, those elongated stitches yet. You're beginning to be able to see them a little bit. That first row right there, can you see this? Let me zoom in a little bit on this. Let you see this. Right here. Do you see how much bigger these stitches are than the other ones? That's because these were slipped and they were not knit. So they were not knit until the next row, which makes them stretch out and they become elongated. So there'll be two stitches. These two stitches right here are the two purl stitches, and this is the slip stitch. So the slip stitches are as long as two of the other stitches. And that makes them easier to find, and that's what you're going to see on the pattern. And that's all there is to it. So you continue in pattern, always slipping the first stitch on the row and then continuing across. On this row, I'm on the front of the sock and I'm just going to knit across. When I flip it over, I'll slip one and then I'll purl one, slip one, purl one, slip one to the end. Come back around and repeat those two rows. That's all there is to it. It is just nothing to it at all. Until and I'm going to do it for the 16 repeats of the two rows, 32 rows total, because that fits my foot. And I'll be back with you. I probably will not wait a whole week because it's not going to take you a whole week to get this done. And it's not going to hurt to have this out a little bit earlier. If you're not to that point yet, just wait until you get there, and it'll be there waiting for you. So I will see you next time, and happy knitting, y'all. Bye.